Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Free Zone. Tonight, to be honest with you guys, Rustin and I are just going to kind of talk. We're going to talk about football. We are going to talk about area matchups for Friday, and we're going to talk about just football in general. And if any of you have some things, questions you'd like to ask or things you'd like us to talk about, you can put those down in the comments, and Derek will flash them on screen for us. We're going to start though with area matchups. And we're going to start in the WAC, and we're also going to talk about some other interesting matchups. But all right, in the WAC, first we've got Hayes at Maize South. Maize South has played some people strong, but their record is not great. I think, to me, this is a game that if Hayes plays well, they'll be fine and they'll win this game. But at the same time, Maize South's dangerous enough that if Hayes doesn't play well, they may find themselves in a dogfight in this game.
I can see Maize South reminding us of a Salina South team a few years ago.
Yeah, a little bit.
The record was not indicative of the type of team they were, just through that level of competition on their schedule. But that being said, I like what Hayes is doing. I think they're pretty physical. Take Hayes.
Yeah, Hayes is 5-0 right now, guys. For those of you that don't know, and they're if they win this one and next week, they're going to be sitting pretty for the number 1 seed in the West. Maize is 6-0 right now. Maize has got a couple of tough games left. So if Hayes can win out, they're going to have a good shot at that number 1 seed in the West. I think Hayes will win it too. That's my pick for the game for sure. Dodge City is open this week. Liberal is now open this week. We unfortunately had to cancel our game with Cape and Mount Carmel. A lot of people have a lot of questions about why the game was canceled and everything like that. And to be honest with you, it's a multitude of reasons. Probably the best way to say it is that between injuries, students that are ineligible, and other factors beyond our control, basically, the decision was made that it wasn't going to be a safe playing atmosphere for the kids we had left. The translation of that is we were going to end up starting a bunch of freshmen probably. Okay. So yeah, that's basically what it boils down to. We were so thin at certain positions, that unfortunately we didn't have much choice there. And that was not a decision made by the coaching staff, or that was a decision made at many levels, administration, both district and building administration, coaches, and so on. So, it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things that sometimes happens. The next one I think is an intriguing matchup. That's Garden City versus Ulysses. Garden City is 0-5. Is that right? 1-5. Yeah. And Ulysses has won 3 in a row. Ulysses is riding high. They've beaten Liberal, Borger, and who'd they beat last week? Wellington. They've beaten Liberal, Borger, and Wellington. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, so they've won 3 in a row. So Ulysses is looking strong, Garden City. Yeah, Garden City ought to, have I don't know. You'd think Garden City would have the edge with their size here, but, Ulysses has got a lot of momentum coming into this game.
I think I may go Ronnie James Dio and ride the Tiger.
All right. Well, there you go.
I think I'm going to go with it. I don't know. Just a good energy. They got something special in Coach Kenny's kid. Their linebacker.
They've incorporated him into the offense a lot more in the last 3 weeks. It looks to me like, watching him on film before we played him, I didn't see him in that offense a whole lot. They ran that jumbo package some, but not nearly as much as they did against us. And my guess is they've probably run that a lot more the last 2 weeks. And yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think Ulysses is kind of riding high at the moment. I think, I hate to pick against Garden City, but at the same time, I think Ulysses, is probably coming in a better place mentally in that game. And I think Ulysses probably has got a good shot at winning that game. We've also got Great Bend versus Goddard Eisenhower and that's the last WAC matchup. Great Bend, of course, is Ophir, right?
Yeah.
And Eisenhower, I'm not sure what Eisenhower's record is. I think they've won at least one. So, that again could be a pretty good matchup. Again, though, Eisenhower's played pretty good competition. So has Great Bend. I'm not taking anything away from their competition, but Eisenhower has played pretty good competition. It'd be nice to see Great Bend get a win in that game, but I don't know.
I think Great Bend's trying to figure out who they are, and maybe they're getting closer to it. I think we saw glimpses there at the end. I think when they were spreading it out and going with that quick game, they were really efficient. And maybe they'll work towards that more. But I think they can have some success there. I'll take goes against a lot of things inside of me. But I'll take the Panthers.
I thought Great Bend played really well against us. Obviously they felt like they had a chance to win a game, and that always makes a team that hasn't won any play harder. But I felt like Great Bend played well against us, and hopefully they'll continue playing well. I'm with you. I think Great Bend's got a good shot against Eisenhower. I think they might be able to win that game. All right, in the GWAC, mostly non-conference games, but they are in district. Okay, so most of the GWAC is in district. Of course, Ulysses isn't. Most of the GWAC teams are in the 3A classification. Okay, so we've got Colby at Scott City. Colby has lost one game to southeast of Saline, I believe, and Scott City has lost three.
When was the last time that happened?
Scott City's not been as strong this year as some past years, but that's So then that's the thing, normally you'd look at the records and you'd think, oh, Colby's going to win this game easily. But I also know, you've got two conference rivals also playing for probably playing for second place in the district. To me, this is a game. Yeah, to me, this is a game that could go either way. It would not surprise me to see Scott City win this one. I think Colby's the better team, but at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me to see Scott City beat them. Now, if you make me pick, though, I'm going to pick Colby.
All right, I think I'm going to take Scott City, having been successful. Been here before.
They've got history on their side a little bit. Yeah,
they do. Colby, kind of unheard of coming on this rise up here. It seems as
Colby was significantly better last year. They've really gotten much better. The last 3 years they've gotten better every year. And this year they've been the team to beat in the GWAC. Well. Colby and Holcomb, have been the teams to beat in the GWAC. Yeah. Speaking of Holcomb is at Pratt Friday night. Again, Pratt's not quite as strong as they have been at times this year. Hugoton beat Pratt last week, I believe. I think Holcomb's probably going to get by Pratt. Holcomb's a pretty strong team this year, so I would definitely pick Holcomb in that game. The third game in the GWAC is Hugoton versus Larned. These are two teams that have a little more history than you would think. When Hugoton first popped up to 4A back in the 80s, Larned was always in their district. And so these are two teams that have been playing each other since the mid 80s. Hugoton's had a pretty good record over the years against Larned. I noticed Larned, they've had a couple of good teams recently, but I noticed they're back down a little bit this year looking at their record. I think Larned is 1-5 maybe. I think Hugoton probably ought to be able to beat Larned. Hugoton's having a good year. They've played well at times.
That's a lethal offense they got going over there.
That
guy
quarterback
throwing dimes and Yeah.
Yeah, quarterback throws the ball well. You know, I watched him against Guyman, and he really threw the ball well against Guyman. Goodland, who we've seen this year, of course, once. Goodland's got Russell. Russell's record's not very good. Of course, Goodland's record is not great either. I believe Goodland is 2-4 now. And I'm not sure. Let me look what Russell's record is. I know Russell has not been great this year. Let's see. Here we go. Russell is 0-6. Goodland is 2-3, not 2-4, and Russell's 0-6. So, yeah, Goodland is not a bad team. I think they have not played well a couple of times this year, but and they've also played. Let's face it, they played some tough competition in that GWAC. So yeah, I think Goodland's definitely got the firepower they're going to need to get by Russell. And so yeah, I'd definitely pick Goodland in that game. And the last,
they got some good athletes outside.
Yeah, and for the last GWAC game,
defense,
we have to,
good front.
Yeah. For the last GWAC game, we have to drop down to 2A, and that is Cimarron. Cimarron is at TMP. Cimarron is 4-2 and 3-0 in the district. TMP is 5-1 and 3-0 in the district. So really, Cimarron and TMP are playing for, well, if not for the district championship, at least for the inside lane at the district championship. They're the only two undefeated teams in the district. So this game could well decide the district championship. Cimarron, of course, their two losses are to Holcomb and Colby, I believe. And let's see who TMP's one loss is to. Yeah, TMP has a loss to Oakley in game 1. They've beaten Russell, Plainville, Syracuse, Ellis, and Southwestern Heights. So TMP hasn't played near the competition that Cimarron has. And that and Cimarron seems to be playing better every week. I think I'm going to go with Cimarron in that game.
I think I would too. I think they're a team that can just pound you. Yeah. They can melt that clock. They got the big fellas up front. I like that. I'll take that.
Yeah. I was only at Cimarron for 1 year, but I was the head coach for 1 year there, and I will always have a special place in my heart for Cimarron. It's a good town, good people, great community, great school. I wish I could have stayed a little longer. Sometimes circumstances prevent that, but yeah, I think Cimarron ought to get TMP, but I think that's going to be a heck of a game. All right, the High Plains League. We've got Syracuse versus Lakin. And even though there isn't technically, I don't think they technically crown a High Plains League champion anymore. If they did, this would be for the High Plains League championship. They're the two teams with the best records within the High Plains League. They're kind of going opposite directions too. Syracuse started off 3-0 and has slid to 3-3. They've lost their last 3 games. Lakin started off with a pair of losses and then has kind of come on in recent weeks. Personally, I think Lakin is probably the better team, even though they're both 3-3 here. And so, yeah, Lakin would be my pick. Lakin is looking like probably number 3 in that district with Cimarron and TMP also. So that's kind of where they are. We've got Elkhart and Sedgwick. Sedgwick is 6-0. Elkhart is 1-5. It's probably going to be a tough night for Elkhart against Sedgwick, but at least they're at home. Maybe that'll make a difference. Maybe the Wildcats have got something for Sedgwick. We hope so. But yeah, Sedgwick's got a lot of firepower. Similar game as far as the levels of firepower. Stanton County, who is 0-6, is at Conway Springs, who's 5-1. That's also in that 1A district. Back to 2A, we've got Southwestern Heights at Ellis. And in 1A, again, we've got Sublette at Wichita Independent. And I'll be real honest with you, I think the High Plains League schools, those 4 High Plains League schools are all in trouble in those 4 matchups.
Yeah.
Heights might be able to play with Ellis. When I think about it, that's going to be the High Plains League best chance for a win out of those 4 games for sure. All right, a quick look at the the SPIA Iroquois League. We've got South Gray at Hodgman County. That should be a pretty good game. South Gray's undefeated. Hodgman County's lost 1. We've got Ingalls at Buckland. Ingalls has won 1 game. Buckland, I believe, has won 2. Again, ought to be a pretty good matchup. We've got Meade at Ness City. Meade has 1 loss. Ness City has 1 win. But Ness City's 1 win was a pretty impressive win last week. So Ness City may have found something last week, or maybe they got a player back that we didn't know about, or something like that.
Keep the momentum rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great matchup out of the Southern Plains Iroquois League this next week. You've got 5-1 Spearville at 6-0 Leota. Leota has just been kind of rolling over everyone. Hopefully Spearville can give them a game there. We've got Mineola versus Dighton. Mineola looking for another win. Dighton looking for their first win in that game. Satanta at South Central. Satanta is 0-6. South Central is 2-4. And then we've got Kiowa County versus Maxville. Kiowa County only has 1 win to their name. Maxville has been a power often in recent years, but Maxville seems to be down this year too. And so those should all be good matchups. Let's say, Rustin, if you could go watch any game in the area out of the ones we've talked about this Friday, where would you go?
That's a good one. That is a good. I think Colby Scott City. I think I'd like to see that one.
Colby Scott City ought to be a heck of a game. It really should. Yeah, I think that might be a pretty good game to go to too. I honestly, because I think it's going to be a good matchup, not because I think that they're 2 great teams, I wouldn't mind going and watching Garden City and Ulysses play.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Just because I think it'll be a good matchup. That one's at Ulysses, and so yeah, I think that might be a good matchup. But yeah. I'm like you though. I think Colby Scott City would also be a real good game, and South Gray, Hodgman County, Spearville, Leota. Either of those would probably be good games. Although I just really don't like that drive up to Leota, so I don't see myself doing it. Of course, Leota's kind of like Elkhart. It's one of those places nobody wants to drive to. All right. Other matchups that we've talked about in the state, big matchups. Here's one from, actually one of the schools is 6A and one of the schools is 5A. Wichita East and Wichita Northwest play this week. To give you a little background, first of all, for those of you that don't know, Wichita East is in 6A. They are undefeated. Wichita Northwest is in 5A. They are undefeated. So they're kind of playing for the unofficial USD 259 championship here. Northwest has, the one common opponent we're going to talk about, because they both had kind of outrageous blowout wins over them, is North. Okay, East beat North 80-0. And Northwest, if I remember right, beat North 92-0.
We're splitting hairs.
Yeah. So.
Oh, they did not want to let off the gas.
Yeah. So.
Oh, boy.
Talk to us about
the City Cup. Get a little lethal.
Yeah.
Who's going to be hungrier, Willie? You got, the come up of East. You got Northwest trying to, hold their crown over there.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm
going to take the underdog. I'm going to go with East.
East. Okay, so here's East's record. East is 4-0. They beat North 80-0. They beat South 54-0. They beat Southeast 84-6. And then their close game in there, they beat Heights 16-13.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's take a look at Northwest. Northwest is also 4-0. Northwest beat West 53-7, Southeast 73-0, North 92-0, and Heights 56-21. That's a pretty convincing score against Heights, 56-21. Yeah, I think, obviously that game could go either way, but I think Northwest ought to be the team that wins that. I think Northwest is the better team. I think they've got more firepower. At the same time, we know from playing East the last couple of years, they're a very athletic team, and they're a team that can really kind of get under your skin.
Physical.
Yeah, physical, absolutely.
I can't remember that number 15 from last year, but I think he went to Butler. Man, great linebacker, great running back. Man, he was everywhere, and they got a couple of those guys.
Yeah, they do. They've got and Northwest has got some dudes too.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I mean both of them have got some serious.
And they've had them. They've had them for a while.
Exactly. All right, another big game in the state is and this may not sound like a big game because both of these teams have a couple of losses, but Bishop Carroll 3-2 versus Bishop Miege 2-2. Okay. Now Carroll's 2 losses are to Derby 21-35 and to Lawrence, who's ranked number 1 in 6A currently, 28-37. So they played within 9 points of Lawrence. They played within 2 touchdowns of Derby. Derby at that time was the top. Well, Derby's the defending state champion in 6A.
Yeah, 2 great teams.
Okay, yeah. So, and Carroll's wins are over Junction City, Cape and Mount Carmel, and Dodge City. Okay, now let's take a look at Miege. Miege is 2-2. Their 2 losses are to St. Thomas Aquinas, again, one of the top schools in the state, and Rockhurst, Missouri, Kansas City Rockhurst. They lost 35-41 to Aquinas, and they lost 28-49 to Rockhurst. So Rockhurst beat them pretty good. They have won over St. James Academy and Wamego. And St. James Academy also, like Miege, I believe St. James Academy's 2 losses are to Aquinas and Rockhurst. So St. James Academy's a pretty good team too. Well, and also obviously they lost to Miege, but I mean besides Miege, they had losses to Rockhurst and Aquinas, I believe. So yeah, to me, even though you've got a 3-2 team and a 2-2 team, that's one of the better matchups in the state this week too.
It's going to be a slugfest.
Yeah. All right, and down in 1A, we've got Centralia and Linden. All right, so Centralia and Linden, they are playing more or less for the district championship, okay? Centralia is 5-1. They lost week 1 to Rossville. Rossville, who is one of the top 5 teams in Class 2A. They have wins over Troy, Jackson Heights, Valley Heights, Jefferson County North, and Beloit. Okay. Linden is also 5-1. Linden's only loss is to Olpe, a 13-7 loss. Olpe is actually the number 1 or number 2 ranked team in 1A. I think, and it depends on who you're looking at, whose rankings you're looking at. But so Olpe's a very good team too.
Yes.
Their wins are over Osage City, Pleasanton, Northern Heights, Anderson County, and Central Heights. Now, obviously, none of us from this part of the state are driving out to see Centralia and Linden. Okay, they both play in the eastern part of the state. But if you're in that part of the state, that's going to be a heck of a game too, Centralia and Linden. Yeah. All right. Okay, Seth Lujan says, could you provide some insight into why Elkhart never regularly scheduled Boise City, Texoma, Clayton, Springfield, Stratford, Hooker, Turpin always seem to play? Yeah, I can tell you that. You're right, as far as some of those schools were closer, and some of those would have been really good matchups, but it did come from the fact that Elkhart was a member of the High Plains League. And in the days that you're probably thinking of, Seth, the High Plains League had 13 or 14 teams in it. Okay. Now the High Plains League is down to 6 teams. And so now they're scheduling games against schools like that. But in its heyday, the High Plains League was often a 13-team league, sometimes a 14-team league. And so, it was broken into 2 divisions, a big school division and a small school division. But usually, even if you were a small school, you filled your schedule with teams from the big school division and vice versa. And so you ended up playing mostly High Plains League schools. Now, Elkhart has played some of those schools over the years. We've played Clayton over the years. We've played Texhoma over the years. I don't believe we ever played Yeah, we did play Turpin in football. You have to go clear back to the early 90s, though, to have Elkhart against Turpin in football. A lot of those schools Elkhart plays in basketball, where where you've got 20 games to schedule instead of 9. But that's what it comes down to. And now they're starting to schedule some of those teams, although to be honest with you, they probably still could be scheduling more of those teams. But that's basically what it came down to. In its heyday, that Elkhart was always playing in the High Plains League, and there were plenty of schools in the High Plains League. You have to remember that the GWAC, a lot of those schools are former High Plains League schools. The Southern Plains Iroquois League, a lot of those schools, well, I don't know about a lot. A couple of those schools are at least 3 of those schools are former High Plains League schools. Okay, so that's the thing, as the High Plains League has shrunk, it will open up those schedules for some of those teams. The other thing is, too, it also has to do with scheduling for the Oklahoma Panhandle schools and the Texas Panhandle schools. There was a time when the Oklahoma Panhandle schools played in 6-team districts, and so they had 4 non-conference games to schedule. And then Oklahoma went to 8-team conferences, so they only had 2 non-conference games to schedule. And we lost Elkhart lost some of those Oklahoma Panhandle schools at that time. And it wasn't just Elkhart, it was other High Plains League schools that were playing some of those Oklahoma Panhandle schools, and they lost those games when they went to bigger districts in the Oklahoma Panhandle. And so a lot of times it's a combination of being wrapped up in league commitments. It's also a combination of different states having different scheduling. And so sometimes just getting the schedules to match up is tough. And the problem is, of course, as 1A shrinks and as there are fewer and fewer 8-man schools out in this part of the state, all those schools are going to start to struggle to fill their schedule. And we're already kind of starting to see that, with the High Plains League being down to 6 schools, those schools are going to start to struggle probably to fill their schedules. And so you may start to see them scheduling more out-of-state schools, especially for Elkhart. It's a good fit because, let's face it, a lot of those out-of-state schools are a lot closer than even the league schools, So, it may be something that you see a little more now that they've got some freedom in scheduling. But again, those schedules have to match up. Those Oklahoma schools have to have games to fill. Those Texas schools and Colorado schools, well, there aren't any 11-man schools in Colorado out in this part anymore. But in Clayton, New Mexico, they've got to have open spots on their schedule. And Clayton often will. Clayton is one of those, they have a tough time filling their schedule a lot of years because the 11-man is so sparse on the east of the Rockies and out in the plains out there where Clayton is, that they have to travel ridiculous distances sometimes to play games. And so, yeah, if they get a chance to play some High Plains League schools, they often look to do that. But that's something, the next time that they reschedule, I think you'll probably see Elkhart pick up some more out-of-state schools. It's crazy to think that we had 3 or 4 schools our size within 6. Yeah, it's true. We played Texhoma probably a little bit before you were in high school, and that was always a good matchup. Texhoma had some good teams. But, I also remember one reason why we quit playing Texhoma. was they packed up and went home on us at halftime one time when they had a 1-point lead and called themselves the winners, even though the state of Kansas said they forfeited the game. And Coach Murray was a little irritated with that. He was the guy that did the scheduling, so we didn't play Texoma in anything after that for a long time. So there are a lot of factors that run into those things, But yeah, you're right. We've never played Clayton. They're about 60 miles from Elkhart. Boise City, we used to play them in basketball. I don't remember ever playing them in football. In recent years, Boise City's dropped to 8-man. I mean, like in the last, 5 years or so. But yeah, those possibilities were always out there. Not only that, but Boise City, they've had, their numbers are so down, Seth. Keys is now the smallest high school in the state of Oklahoma, and I think they may only have 12 students. Okay. Boise City has dropped from a school the size of Elkhart. They would have been, a 2A school in Kansas, maybe even a small 3A, down to what would be a 1A school in Kansas, and an 8-man, they're playing 8-man. Felt out there, their enrollment has they've stayed open, and their enrollment's actually bigger than Keys now. But those three schools, Boise City, Keys, and Felt, the three of them consolidate for sports now. So it's getting tougher. That's why those Oklahoma Panhandle schools now, they're now getting schools in their districts with them that are almost to Oklahoma City. That's how much they're shrinking up out here. Yeah, and Cassie's pointing out that we do play Clayton, and I know Elkhart has played Clayton in recent years. I didn't remember if they did this year or not, but yeah, Elkhart has definitely played Clayton in football in recent years, and I think in basketball. Years ago, we used to open our season at that basketball tournament out there at Clayton. That was always a great basketball tournament. But and I always liked going to Clayton because I liked for our kids to see how nice our facilities and stuff were. And I'm not trying to run Clayton down when I say that, okay? But in New Mexico, their schools don't get the money that we do in Kansas, and I always thought it was good for our kids to see how our facilities stacked up to some other schools in the area, but especially Clayton. It sounds better to beat Boise City 40 miles away instead of getting hammered in Holcomb. Well, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to argue with that. Again, though, like I said, a lot of that's just what's possible in scheduling. And, the way Elkhart schedules games, I think, has changed considerably in the last, 10 years or 11 years since I've been there. Yeah, look, now we play Coldwater and Wichita. Yeah, Elkhart had Wichita Independent, I believe, in their district this year. Okay, so that's how much it's changed. As a matter of fact, in 1A, there are 4 districts. Okay, that's it, 4 districts. And there's only 7 teams in each district. So you got a 32-team bracket in 1A 11-man and 28 teams. So everybody's going to make the playoffs, and 4 schools are going to get a first-round bye in 1A 11-man, okay? So, yeah, when there are that few schools, number one, the districts are bigger. Literally, your district is a quarter of the state geographically. And number 2, you're going to get 6 district games, which means you're going to have 2 non-district games to schedule, and that's it, okay? So they're pretty limited in non-district games too, because now Kansas only plays 8 regular season games, and your game 9 is the first round of the playoffs. And now if you don't make the playoffs, then those schools will play each other for a game 9 in the small schools. Okay, so you do still get 9 games, but game 9 for most schools is the playoffs, okay? And in 1A, where Elkhart is, everybody's going to make the playoffs, so game 9 will be the playoffs for everyone. And that's kind of where we are with those. And those great questions, guys. Thanks for the questions and the comments. Rustin, what are you looking forward to this week?
Well, I think some good matchups. Another thing I'm looking forward to is the Broncos actually playing football this week.
Yeah.
After preparing all week to play the Patriots, Belichick got his way, right?
Yeah. I'm going to say, I this is horrible to admit, but I'm not sure I've watched an NFL game in 3 or 4 or 5 years. There came a point there where I like to watch college football. I felt like my wife deserved a little bit of my time. So I kind of quit watching football on Sundays. And I'm really not only vaguely aware of what goes on in the NFL. So the Patriots, did we have a COVID situation? Is that why they didn't play the Chiefs?
Well, Cam Newton got it.
Right. Gotcha.
Star quarterback. And then they postponed the game to Tuesday. So Denver was preparing all week, but New England couldn't get into practice at the facility until Saturday. So they were extending it to Tuesday. Then
hopefully he'll be back.
They cancel it outright. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Vic Fangio in a press conference said, well, you can tell who the whiners and the blankers are.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. Old Fangio giving a little dig at Belichick,
Yeah.
But it's a circus right now.
And they're not the only ones, are they? Didn't I hear that Tennessee hadn't played a couple of their last couple of games or something
they just made one up yesterday against Buffalo.
Yeah.
From 2 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So the craziness goes on not just at the high school and college level, but it's going on at the pro level too.
The gripes go up, Private.
Yeah.
It's
Coach Watt, one of these days I want to have you on here and just have you talk. You and I talk offensive philosophy. We're already kind of running out of time tonight, and we may save that for after the season. But sometime I'd love for you and I to come on here and just talk offensive philosophy a little bit. And just one of the things that I want to start to do with this show too, a little bit, and probably more in the off season, is talk a little more about the mechanics of the game. So Coach. And to be honest with you, I think we need a co-host every week. So I'm just telling you, anytime you want to do the show, you're welcome. We'd love to have you. Okay.
Enjoy it anytime.
All right. We had Seth on there, that's giving us the comments. Seth Lujan is who that is, Coach. He's awesome. Seth played in Elkhart when I coached in Elkhart. So was still playing in Elkhart when I coached at Cimarron too. So I've both coached Seth and coached against Seth.
I've probably heard stories of that team.
You may have. Seth was a great kid, and it would be great to have him back. And Seth served his country in Iraq, I believe. And so, we appreciate his service and appreciate his experience. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So guys, Saturday we'll be back with the Saturday breakdown. Okay. We'll take a look at what happened Friday night. We'll take a look at what happened in Oklahoma and Texas as well. And next week, we'll be back on Wednesday. Coach Watt may be back with us. I don't know. We'll see between now and then. But one of these days, we're going to talk some offensive philosophy. We might get a chance to do it next week, or it may be once the season's over. But one of these weeks, I want to, and we may get more than just Coach Watt in on that. I want to get, some coaches and sit down and just talk offensive philosophy, and then eventually on down the road talk defensive philosophy and some of the mechanics of the game. And so those are some of the things that we'll be doing in the future. One thing that we probably should mention, because I know we've got some people occasionally from Guyman that watch the program. I know absolutely no details as to what happened in Guyman. And if I did, I wouldn't want to talk about him right now. But I did notice that Coach Wooten had been released from his contract there at Guyman. And so Guyman has an interim head coach for the rest of the season. And, maybe in the off season, that's something we'll talk about and sort out. But now is not the time to spend a lot of time talking about that. It's never a good thing for either a coach or a program when a coach, is released in the middle of a season. And so, I wish Guyman the best. I wish Coach Wooten the best and everybody involved in that situation. And like I said, it's not something we're going to spend a lot of time talking about here, maybe in the off season. But so we want to wish all of you out there good luck Friday night. Everybody stay healthy. That's especially important this time of year as we're starting to head toward the playoffs.
Postseason time.
Absolutely. Want to tell you to check out Back Home Media and check out Back Home Media, both. Check out their website where you'll find a lot of information about them. You can check us out on all the platforms you see there on the screen. And also Back Home Media, check out their Twitch feed. A lot of good things happening with Back Home Media, and we're glad to be a Back Home Media production. So, guys, we'll check you out next. We'll see you Saturday for the breakdown, and then we'll see you next week on In the Free Zone with Norm. Thank you, everybody, for the comments tonight, and thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Well,
I don't think and I thought it that's different. I said what I said and I meant it, or lamented. Words given weight without thought in a person, the way that I talk and the way that I ought to be able to pause and to say that the fault can be placed on my arm, to this playful assault, to disgrace in its arm. Pray for the day they could wait for the calm. You can't control the storm, only weather it, whether it's 5 weeks and 5 days of rain sideways, or scorched earth, search for death, or water left with all the thorns, with the petals gone, settle on the breath of autumn. If the ground fits, wear it, the crown